Hello, everyone. Welcome to Academy of Astrology UK. I'm Rod Chang, and I have to remind you, this is our uh, pre-recorded live session. As Mandi say, it's still a live session because we are not going to edit it. Okay, this is for the 1st of July, Friday, 1st of July is our special podcast. And then every first week of a month, Mandi and Marcus and we will usually discuss the transit of the month, and usually we're based on the new moon, full moon, and important transit. But for this episode, we will also add a little bit about the summer solstice. So, hi Mandi, hi Marcus.
Hello.
Hi. So, it is kind of the first, the weather is quite warm at this moment in whole Europe. Because I'm going to Italy, so I check the weather would be 35 degrees. I just really hope they can grieve more fat out of my body. Well, so when you see this episode, I'm in Italy enjoying a family trip. Okay, but yes, but we still the work still have to done. So let's do let's start with the summer solstice. How about that?
Yeah.
Let me share the chart of summer solstice. Yeah. Here we are. So this is summer solstice chart still based on London. And look at that chart is quite interesting because the summer solstice chart in London, I shouldn't say summer solstice because the more correctly way now to call it is a June solstice, right? Because in the south hemisphere is winter.
Yeah, depends where you are in the world, right? So,
yeah. So the June solstice chart, well, in UK is quite interesting because we have that Uranus on the MC, Uranus on the MC, and a lot of people believe that was the interesting event for last month about the no confidence vote to Boris Johnson. And also when we record this, we have like a by-election, and the Tory lost 2 seats of by-election in the parliament. Both seats by-election, they lost, one to Liberal Democrat and one to Labour. So the things in parliament is going to change, I think. Yeah. And in this chart, what do you think, Mandi?
Well, in terms of what a solstice chart represents, 2 solstices in the year, of course, there's the June one, which is a summer solstice in the northern hemisphere, winter in the southern, and then you have the solstice, the Yule solstice, which is in December. And then you have the equinoxes as well. So the solstices, so for example, in the northern hemisphere at the moment, we've just passed the longest day of the year when the sun spends the most time in the sky, the shortest night. And then the equinox, the other 2 points in the year are the equinoxes, where it's day and night of equal length. And these are all the ingresses of the cardinal signs. So we have here the ingress of the sun into Cancer. And in terms of mundane astrology, you can actually look at these charts for these the solstices and the equinoxes, for the cardinal ingresses, in other words, to make predictions for the coming 3 months to come. There's all sorts of different rules that might vary that, but generally speaking, we can kind of look at this chart to make 3 months to come. So just that's a little bit of background. I think it's interesting that it's square to the moon. There's a moon square there, and then the moon is in Aries, and the moon is also conjunct Jupiter. So you've got Sun square Jupiter there in Aries and Cancer. So what's Cancer about, really? Cancer is about security, comfort, it's emotional protection, I think, because it's a very sensitive sign. But of course, it is also a cardinal sign as well. So a cardinal sign is a sign that needs to take action. And square from Aries, you kind of push towards action a bit more. And Jupiter, of course, emphasizes and enhances that. Perhaps Jupiter brings a little bit of confidence, although I don't know what it's like in the rest of Europe and across the world, but certainly in the people don't have much confidence at the moment in politics, the cost of living crisis and all that kind of thing. So it's interesting we have a trine. What is that? What is that? An out of sign trine I can see there from the sun Cancer to Saturn, which is interesting. Saturn is obviously retrograde, but Saturn is also in a sign Aquarius where it's very strong. So it's an interesting chart. I've got another interesting thing I'd like to say about this chart, but you guys say something first, I think.
Okay, sure. Marcus, do you want to join?
Oh, so many interesting things here. I want to pick up from where you left off, Mandy, about the Sun Moon square, and just point out something of the astrology of that square. It's really interesting because it's a waning moon square, which usually implies sort of the clearing up or a sort of resolving phase of some situations. But as Mandy pointed out, it's in cardinal signs, so they kind of want to get things done. I see this as actually quite a positive chart because there's this amazing generosity between both the sun and the moon and the sun and Jupiter, because both anything in Aries is in the sun's exaltation, and the sun in Cancer is ruled by the moon and in Jupiter's exaltation. So there's a very strong mutual reception between both ends of that square. So a square is a tense, stressful aspect.
Yeah.
But these are both dynamic signs that want to get things done. It's the sort of closing or finishing up of some kind of business or something. And it's kind of got this moon Jupiter-y vibe to it. It's kind of like, let's get this sorted out and packed away. And one side of it really wants to sort of get the business of tidying it all up done as quickly as possible. That's the moon Jupiter bit. And the sun in Cancer kind of just wants to make sure that this is all done sensitively and with sort of kind of, so there's an interesting, I don't know how that will play out in different parts of the world, but I see as that's somewhat tense but rather positive. I mean, Roger, you might have some ideas about how that might play out on a mundane level. And then my last thing to say, just to add on to what Mandy said about the sun Saturn trine, and we can pick apart the mundane ramifications of this or whatever generally in a minute, that I would count that trine, oddly, you might think, as a traditional astrologer, because the sun actually, this is a bit esoteric, but the sun cast its anticyon is at 29 degrees of Gemini. So it's actually trining Saturn through the anticyon, which are like the short answer to that, or anyone who doesn't know what the hell I'm talking about there, they're like invisible aspects, basically. They're like hidden, and they signify hidden things. So normally the sun in Cancer and Saturn in Aquarius in traditional astrology, you'd say those two signs don't see each other. They're in aversion. They represent two planets that don't like or have anything to do with each other. But there's this hidden trine. But there's an interesting other aspect to it, which is the sun is in Saturn's detriment in Cancer, and Saturn is in the sun's detriment in Aquarius. So you've got two ends of these planets, the sun and Saturn, that actually are in signs that harm each other, but are casting a hidden friendly aspect to each other. So there's so much interesting contradictory stuff in this chart. That I feel like overall, though, the chart is tense, but with good constructive potential. So, yeah.
Well, very interesting. I think the first that is the what I learned is the first by-election in UK, and people are not happy with, of course, also the inflation, the food price going up in UK, and people are not really happy. That's one thing, we're spending more money to buy, or people just like cut shopping list and try to save more money. That's one thing in UK. But overall in Europe, it's the same thing, similar things. I think weeks ago, the general election in France, in their parliament election, their government party also kind of lose the majority, and Macron have to have the coalition with other party to form the government. So far I didn't see any luck. Maybe I hope they will resolve very quickly, because sounds like if he have no choice, he have to work with Marine Le Pen.
Oh wow, that's gonna be interesting. Okay,
that'll be huge. Yes. And what else? Oh, the important things today. Today was the day we record. I'm really sorry. They will say last week when you watch this video, with on the same day, on the Friday 10 a.m. U.S. East time, their Supreme Court officially overturned the abortion right in the federal level. That means they used to be from the 1973. The abortion right was kind of protected by the federal. So you have right to abortion. But now they overturn that decision. Now this kind of a right, at least this going to be decided by each state. And it sounds like a half part of the United States state going to pass the ban the abortion. And this is huge. And this is, to be honest, yes, I usually try not to say something big word, but this is a bad word of human right. I'm really sorry.
Look at that Venus.
Yes.
In Taurus square Saturn there. You've got the idea of a woman's asset, a woman's body.
Yes.
You know, very much so. Body is very Taurian and
it
Venus
is
female sign. Square Saturn, and you've got sort of the authorities making a decision about that. That's interesting. I think that Venus square Saturn also has something to say about lack of resources, lack of assets, lack of money at the moment. It says something a little bit about the cost of living crisis that we're going through too, and lack of resources.
I just turned the chart to Washington DC. Do you want to have a look?
Yeah, let's have a look.
It might surprise you, Mandi.
And Mandi, there we go. Look at that. Saturn right on the midheaven.
Wow.
Yeah, and the Venus in the 12th. So Venus has been consigned to the prison of the 12th house, basically.
Yes.
Did you know traditionally, you guys all know this, but the 12th house was the house of pregnancy traditionally. I mean, the fifth house relates to, so I need to be clear here. The fifth house was the house of pregnancy, but the 12th house was the house of the last bit of pregnancy, because it's the house of confinement. You know, the last bit of pregnancy just before delivery, when the woman was confined to the bed. So it's like, and it's interesting in traditional astrology because Venus was said to have her joy in the fifth house, but also Venus was said to have an affinity for the 12th house, interestingly. So anyway, whatever, it's a bit esoteric, but that's Venus all imprisoned in the 12th. So
I suppose it makes sense as well, given how historically how dangerous and you know, a risk to life birth was, basically. So that it makes sense as well. It's really interesting. It's gosh, there's a lot going on. One more thing, unless anyone's got
please
say about the Venus. One of the things that jumped out at me when I had a brief look at the chart earlier, you've got Mars in Aries. Now it's kind of, if you discount the traditional planets, it's unaspected. So Mars in Aries is strong anyway. So Mars in Aries is really good to go, all fired up. But then it's got a conjunction there to Chiron. And I was looking at Melanie Reinhardt's book, the Chiron and the Healing Journey, this afternoon, and it said something really interesting about Chiron, that we know Chiron is the wounded healer, but Chiron, as we know, is also wounded, but also the wounder. So all three of those elements, that kind of triad of sort of wounding, wounded healer.
Yes.
In Aries with the warrior planet, and the warrior planet is given free rein to do its best, its worst at the moment. So that's, I'm not sure what exactly that might mean in terms of sort of mundane astrology and what's happening in the world. But I think it's an interesting thing to look
the first
out
things,
for.
Mandi, the first things is Chiron return of that law called that constitution decision on the 1973, 50 years after. So it's a Chiron return.
Wow.
It's exactly that's
what
exactly
it means.
great. That's exactly great, but it's a Chiron return because 1973, and you know, next year will be 49 years now. So it is a Chiron return. So, and usually I think the Chiron, when Chiron in Aries, I usually bring the gender and the sex issue rather than like in the 70s is early 70s, late 60s is the LGBTQ movement start from Stonewall in 1969, and that's one thing we focus on. And then also there's a second wave of a feminism movement during that time, and then now it's go I don't know. I don't want to talk about that, but it's quite upsetting. But I think, Marcus, you may be right, because people will not be silenced, and I think people will prepare for something, because we are in the air sign, you know, the Jupiter Saturn conjunction.
Yes,
So people will take the action. People will not just like, oh, okay.
Well, I think I mean there's some I'll just a broader comment on that. I mean, just what I was thinking this week is about the era that we're in, of the Jupiter Saturn conjunction in Aquarius, and that being the sort of overarching thing of this 20 years and possibly setting the tone for the next 200 years, and that being the era of the detriment of the sun, but also a very strong Saturn in Aquarius. It's all about egalitarianism, but also a bit like anti-individualism. So I think there are positives and negatives to that. And ultimately, I think a lot of what's happening right now is the sort of seismic effects of this stuff, where we're getting the old Earth ideologies sort of in an abutment with the incoming air stuff. So there's a lot of things that need to be settled where and hopefully, you know, some of the more positive potentials of greater egalitarianism will come about without loss of individual freedoms or self-expression, which could be signified by that. Do you know what I mean? But we'll see. I mean, I agree, Rod. So I just want to say one last thing about the Venus here, or just something that I observed, just to build on what Mandi was saying. You'll know, is Venus on Alcyone there? Like, it's pretty close. She's sort of between Alcyone and Algol, but is she?
I think it would be pretty. No. It isn't.
Or is Alcyone away. Is Alcyone 1 degree Gemini these days?
Around 0, I think.
0 Gemini. Oh, so it's maybe a bit far away. Okay, so I just wanted to check. But the other thing, apart from the square to Saturn, is the fact that Venus is on the North Node, and that Venus is trine Pluto. So we've got this Venus that's really dignified and strong, conjunct the North Node, which expands it, which blows up that issue, but also increases its prominence. But Venus is also in this tough position of squaring Saturn in malefic degrees. In the last degrees of the sign were always said to be ruled by Saturn. So there's a partial reception. So all of that suggests to me that Venus, whatever Venus signifies, and in general, it's sort of stuff to do with women and the archetypal feminine and female issues, and it's going to be very physical. It's all about literally women's bodies, or the female body in different ways, squared by Saturn. It's that could be, as you were saying, Mandi, sort of oppression of that, but or I don't think you were saying this directly, but tell me if I'm putting words in your mouth, but sort of like oppression of the female body by authorities or whatever.
Absolutely.
So and then with the trine by Pluto, this whole process is really going to unearth some nasty stuff about that and transform for the better in the end. But Pluto what Pluto unearths is always stinking and unpleasantly fermented, but with a trine, the process can be quite beneficially sort of transformative in the end, I think. But with the square, and I think the square to Saturn with Venus, I think in Saturn's term, says a sort of similar thing, that there's some, with Saturn in dignity, it's retrograde, so okay, this will drag on for a bit, and there's stuff about women being oppressed and stuff about really negative controlling things about women's bodies in all sorts of ways going to be brought up in this quarter of the year until the September equinox or whatever. But I think the end results might be quite positive, but it's not going to be particularly pleasant.
There's a trine, of course, allows. A trine is an allowing.
Yes.
So
and
the other thing we should probably not forget is that although there's not a tight aspect at the moment on this chart, the Saturn-Uranus square is still going strong, and it has, it's back into that square is going to come back into it orb soon as well, actually.
Yes, very soon. Yeah,
it's not far off now, is it?
No. So that's the old versus the new, and it's and that kind of battle between progress and tradition.
I see a lot of this. I mean, a lot of this really speaks to some of the stuff about, you know, trans women sports, you know, the Leah Thomas controversy.
Oh, yeah, same thing, yes.
Yeah, about female bodies and all of that. There's the
Yeah.
stuff about the as you mentioned, the abortion laws, which I was completely bloody oblivious to that
Yeah.
going on. And what was the, I mean, just on a really more trivial level, it's the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing, and perhaps her going back into more litigation. And I say that because Johnny Depp, I believe, has, I can't remember whether he has Algol on the midheaven or he's got something in his chart.
Venus. They both have a Venus around the 26
Taurus, yeah, on
Both of
Algol,
them.
right?
Yeah.
And I think his midheaven is ruled by that Venus, because I think he's he's Leo rising.
I think so, yeah.
And I've always noticed he's got this big stonking Venus Saturn square in his chart. So I think this is his second Saturn return, maybe with Venus.
Yeah,
so this is replicating something of his square. So it's kind of emblematic of like the whole, that whole trial has been, I've seen it. I mean, this is obviously just a very personal view, but I sort of saw it as a, because we had the whole Me Too movement when Jupiter was in Scorpio, revealing a lot of the sort of sexual power injustices and sort of righting them. But then, as usual with most mass movements, things, this pendulum swings a bit too far one way. So it went from sort of believe women to just believe all women unconditionally. And then now we have the Amber Heard Johnny Depp thing, where it's like, okay, whatever you think of it, it's like it's bringing up talk about, oh, okay, so women can potentially be abusers too. So it's kind of like, it's sort of like writing that swing. But the problem with this is when it's in the public forum, the pendulum always tends to swing too bloody far, and then you've got a kind of, do you know what I mean? It's sort of either one or the other, black or white. And I think that's very Saturnine thinking. It's like it's either you're this or you're that, and it's like,
interesting actually, Marcus, when you say that the case in the US, Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp, it was jury, but it was also pretty much trial by media, right? But the jury had to decide whether everything she said was true or everything she said was untrue.
Yeah.
Whereas and vice versa, because I think they sued each other, didn't they? But with the trial in London, it was by a trial by judge, and the judge did rule that there was probably enough evidence to suggest that whatever the newspaper said about him and being a domestic abuser, there was probably enough evidence allegedly for that to be a correct judgment. But of course it was a civil case, but in the US it was different. It was black and white, all or nothing. So she was either a total liar, or she was totally saying everything that happened to her was true.
That's very much on the sort of, and by the way, this is, we're not, I have no partisanship here. I found it very interesting. That very much fits, Mandy, with the fact that Venus is on the bottom end of this square. We've got Saturn in the overcoming position here now. So it's like the Venus is taking a bit of a punishment from that Saturn.
And some people, some friends say this doesn't matter who win, but there is also a big setback for the female right, because they tried so hard, or that with the Me Too movement, they tried so hard to to move forward. And now with this case, a lot of people can say, well, female could be abuser, and what do you say, maybe not true. That is a discourage.
It could go either way, but I agree. I mean, that's certainly what the astrology is saying. And just as a side note on that, I've just thought, we've got the South Node going through Scorpio, and of course it was when Jupiter was in Scorpio that the whole Me Too thing was. The South Node reduces things. So this is a characteristic of astrology, that transits or charts never stop. Things that have happened never stop having happened, if that makes sense. So the fact that when Jupiter was in Scorpio, we had the Me Too movement, anything, I mean, this sounds so total, but I think it's true, anything that subsequently goes through Scorpio could potentially trigger or have resonance for that thing. So whenever you have, so now we have the South Node going through Scorpio, it's potentially sort of reducing some of that previous Me Too energy sort of thing, for good or for bad.
Yeah, I totally agree, Marcus. And
Yeah.
what just reminded me of something very interesting that I read about at the time. Some of the sort of hatred that Amber Heard got
Vitriol,
online,
yeah.
for example. And it said that it was hurtful to the Me Too movement because it proved the misogynist fact that you can't have an imperfect female victim, which goes back to that misogyny that on some level, if a woman is a perfect paragon of virtue, that on some maybe unconscious or even conscious level for some people, that person might possibly deserve some of the awful things that happen.
I agree. Yeah.
I mean, you know, and again, I'm trying very hard not to give my personal opinions.
Yeah, true. But, yes.
Yeah, I thought that was really fascinating, that idea of the imperfect.
Yeah,
I agree.
That wouldn't be tolerated, that's not being tolerated, and you know, and it makes a
it
mockery.
Is. I mean, I think what's interesting is that we've got that retrograde Saturn in Aquarius, that sort of feeling of social condemnation and whatever. But as astrology, we know it's all cycles. So all of this stuff will just it's to me, it really is. I mean, that specific case aside, these are just like pendulum things, and the pendulum will go back the other way again. So it's just interesting to see which avatars arise. And it's totally interesting to me, Rod, that I didn't know that they both had that Venus Saturn square in their charts. So that's so interesting, because
is he not a Capricorn moon as well, Johnny?
Yes.
Johnny is Capricorn moon. Yes.
That's interesting. So that Saturn rulership of the emotional stuff, interesting.
Well, should we move to the new moon on the 29th of June? Okay. Well, here is the new moon, still set up in London, but we will talk about just like a more not totally related to house, but we got a new moon in 7 degree Cancer. Interesting, super interesting degree. I think if most monthly astrologer knows this degree is a kind of a, I don't want to say cardinal because it's kind of a what should we say? Because the 1st of January is around this degree, you know, 10, 9 degree of Capricorn. So the 7, 8, 9, 10 degree of a Capricorn and the Cancer are usually interesting degree and super sensitive. And I think in UK we have the chart related to this degree too. But this 7 degree is a super sensitive, I have to say. And then, well, in this chart, I think the change a little bit. Something is, I want to say the first things is, remember spring equinox chart, the Aries English chart in this year, we have the moon in 28 degree Aries square Pluto in 27 Capricorn. So when the Mars this month, this new moon moved here, bang.
Spring equinox when, Rod? When is that?
This year.
This year?
This year.
Jupiter was in 28 Aries.
28
moon.
Oh,
moon. Okay, that makes more sense. Sorry. Okay,
moon.
So I was like, what?
Moon square.
Not there.
No,
okay.
I said Jupiter. Oh my God.
I think so, or I heard it. I'm not sure. I'm
sorry.
tired.
Thank you for correcting me. Moon square Pluto. So when the Mars come here, bang, will hit this.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's
the first things I noticed for this new moon chart.
Well, of course, we need to remember that new moons are quite magical times. The new moons are quite magical times, and the new moon, things are hidden. It's the dark of the moon.
I see the seeds.
I see
revealed,
this
to be confirmed, to be arranged.
Yeah.
That feeling of a new moon.
Yeah. But we have the both the Sun and Moon square Jupiter in this chart.
Oh yeah, but look at that lovely reception again. I'm kind of like
again.
Yeah, that they have.
Oh yes.
Yeah, they have a fantastic mutual reception. So they're both squaring Jupiter, but I'm like that is a really constructive square, because like Jupiter really likes well, I think that there's not mutual reception with the moon. There's only a simple reception, but definitely mutual reception with the sun. So it's like, this is like loads of energy, and maybe more energy than direction, or maybe like sort of a bit too much energy, like over promising on the energy and then possibly under delivering because not really very focused. But it's still kind of like, I think this is sort of pent up optimism in a weird way. I don't know, but
idealism. Yeah,
something like that.
Optimism. Yes. Yeah.
And but then, as you say, Rod, there's there's the Mars square Pluto, which is sticky, and then there's not so bad here, but there's Saturn in the midheaven retrograde in a night chart, but Saturn's trining the ascendant. So it's kind of like, okay, there's dodgy shenanigans going on in the government. Well, what surprise? Like the government's been a bit crap, and I don't know. Saturn retrograde in the 10th is sort of like something about the old guard and very conservative and a bit tyrannical and not much movement and things getting stuck and no progress being made. But kind of like with the trine to the ascendant, it's sort of like the people are all right with it. It's maybe like there's not much change happening, which is weird because that really conflicts with the Uranus on the midheaven at the equinox chart. So I'm not sure what.
Oh yes,
the
English. You mean Cancer English chart?
Yes, the equinox.
Well, maybe only this month.
Yes, could be.
They're waiting a little bit to kick off or something.
Yes, true. Because the ingress chart, the Cancer ingress chart, the equinox chart, that would be valid for the whole next 3 months.
3 months.
Yeah. Whereas this is just like this month. So
I think this could be not only in UK, because we talk about the UK because the Saturn is in 10th house, but I think this situation because it's also what we all of us going to feel about it, because if you see the Uranus is kind of conjunct North Node, but never forget the Saturn is between in the band. Saturn is square either both nodal axis point. So we're going to feel in one way the pressures and stuck in the middle or something. But in another way, we really want to move forward. Some people really want to push forward. So like both this Saturn, the fight between Saturn and Uranus for last 2 years is coming to appear again.
It's
this summer.
I think you're spot on, Rod. That's exactly. It's really push me pull you, isn't it? Because Saturn at the bends is kind of like any planet at the bends is kind of at a watershed moment. It's really like the pressure and the focus is on that planet. So Saturn in Aquarius, the sort of social distancing, these social rules, the sort of like what's right, what's wrong socially, and retrograde. It's kind of like all of this sort of some stuff is coming back or stuff's being raked over again and revisited. But then the energy of this chart with that Sun, Moon, square Jupiter is just like people just want to liberate themselves and break free and stuff all the rules, stuff that we're sick of this. We want to just get out and have a party and have summer and, sod that. That's the Aries energy, the Jupiter and Aries. It's sort of almost evangelical in its desire for freedom. And then the result of that might be that Mars square Pluto, where you've got kind of, and the way that tends to manifest is all these sort of like subterranean power battle things. I don't know quite how that would show up with Mars in Aries, but it's kind of like, Mars in Aries is kind of, it jumps in to battles without really thinking about it. It's just like, this is the right thing to do. This is what I believe. Boom, that's what I'm going to do. But with square to Pluto, often the way it operates is kind of, I really dislike Mars Pluto squares. I've got the transit of Pluto opposing my natal Mars for the past year, and it's been rough. So it's just like what you tend to experience on a personal level with that transit is, and it's probably a reflection of some, so this will be true on the collective level to some degree. I think on the personal level, it's reflective of some unacknowledged anger or turmoil in yourself that you tend to experience as other people tearing you down or attacking you through underhanded means, sort of attacking your reputation or attacking you in sort of really left field ways. So rather than somebody coming up to your face and going, no, you're an idiot, it'll be somebody kind of like trying to get in through, you know, through some underhand way and attack. But the interesting thing is
I think.
Yeah, that the interesting thing there is that is almost always tied in with some unrecognized simmering brew of rage within you. So and so on the collective, it's this simmering collective frustration, I think, that's spoken to by that. We've still got all this sort of like social unresolved social tension about what's right and wrong and what we should be doing and what, you know, what the rules are and what shouldn't we be doing. Everyone wants to break free at the same time. Everybody's sick of it. Let's have a party. It's summer. Let's go out. And then the result of that is something to do with that Mars Pluto. And I don't know what that'll show up in practical terms, but I think that's something. Yeah.
Mandi, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree, and you expressed that brilliantly, Marcus. I just wanted to really add to that, you know, if you know that Mars in Aries, that very strong Mars in Aries, it's still got that conjunction with Chiron there, and obviously very close. You know, it's almost like, oh, letting out that wild centaur energy, because traditionally Chiron was quite civilized, but the Chiron, the centaurs were very wild, and when you go for that freedom and you start that fight, then you meet Mars and Pluto, you kind of like be careful what you might unearth, like you say, and psychologically potentially that's a reflection of something deep within you that you're seeing coming towards you, or you know, from something else. So it's quite well, I mean, I think what we're trying to say is that it's a really intense energy. And I think another thing this chart is trying to say as well at the moment, with it being a new moon chart, very an emotional Cancer, is it's really easy to lose the perspective at this time. I mean, this chart isn't going to, you know, be in operation for a long time, although, you know, some of these aspects will last longer, but it's going to be difficult to see the perspective. We might lose a perspective. We know we lose a perspective when we lose our temper, or when we get passionate about something, or we desire something very strongly, which desire is obviously something that Mars talks about. And I think those deeper, perhaps even darker desires is something that might be related to Pluto as well. So it's very interesting.
It is an interesting chart, isn't it? I want to throw in a little word just for that sextile, that very, very tight sextile between Venus and Jupiter. They're seven partile in traditional. They're both 7 degrees. Look, like 7 degrees 16 Venus, 7:18 Jupiter. So it's almost exact. Now it's not super constructive because Venus is in Gemini, which is Jupiter's detriment. So Jupiter kind of doesn't really accept what Venus is saying, but what Venus is saying in Gemini is kind words and amusing things. And I think it's kind of like, this is the in terms of what you were saying, Mandi, about things being blown out of proportion, which Jupiter does have the power to do emotionally with that Jupiter Sun Moon square in Cancer. Venus can say a few kind and soothing words to Jupiter there, which Jupiter may not fully accept, but it's kind of like, so it's kind of like when people are ideologically driven, which I see that Mars, Jupiter and Aries with Chiron, because of some wound, they're carrying some freaking wound. So they're like, I'm going to act out all of my anger, all of my hidden anger, which I disown because it's Mars squaring Pluto. So this is my anger. It's these other people saying horrible things to me. And it's just like, people being ideologically driven one side or another, and emotionally wrapped up in their beliefs. Venus at this time in this month has the capacity just to say calming, soothing, kind things that might just help things along. So the power this month is that Venus has in the same sign as Mercury in Gemini is to put things, say things, express things in a kind and eloquent way that can really, to some extent, defuse some of the ideological tension. Will it completely negate it? No, because Jupiter's going to reject Venus a bit, but it can help a lot.
Wow, beautiful.
Again, brilliant. And I think that that obviously Mercury in Gemini with the Venus in Gemini also adds a levity as well. You know, that kindness might come perhaps in in the style of humor, or a bit more lightness, or a bit more jokey, if you understand that might be, sort of take the pressure off with it.
Just turn it into a bit of a pun or a double entendre, or make a little joke out.
Well, I really hope everyone remember this when this month you are facing some, maybe the wild time, crazy time, or someone really,
pushes
trigger your
buttons.
anger or something. Remember about the Venus-Mercury conjunction in Gemini. Maybe a little bit sense of humor, maybe with a kind word. I know it's very hard because of my personality. I am not this type of person.
Look, I mean, look, this is why they call it triggered, right? Because when you're triggered, it's all Mars all the time. And but we know that Venus is the antidote to Mars always. Venus is Mars's antidoting counterpart, same as Jupiter is Saturn's antidote. So but I don't think this is a super negative chart. It's just very charged. I do think there's a lot of positive potential with that Jupiter Sun Moon square there, where it's kind of like there's a lot of potential optimism and drive to create positive emotional change. It's a little bit too overcharged with feeling and fervor, and that people's pent up and unrecognized frustrations that fuel their ideology is what could make things get a bit sort of toxic in terms of that Mars Pluto thing. It's sort of like the sort of I'm not angry, but it's like,
well,
I'm just pissed.
You know what? It is a Cancer new moon, and Cancer is about home. So if all else fails under this new moon, you can just stay at home and hide under the bed. Right? There's me. I'm doing Venus in Gemini.
Or go for a really long swim or something.
Oh dear, yes.
Should
we move on full moon, because the interesting full moon, that is another intense.
Oh, this is where it gets really crazy, right?
Yeah,
hopefully in a good way.
Yeah, the first this full moon, in the astronomical term, is a super full moon. So if you are able, I mean UK, yes, we can see it just a little bit after, if you free and the weather is good, go to look at a super full moon. Would be like a 12% bigger than usual. So this is this year's biggest full moon, this July. But also that means, well, in the modern term, moon is in the what we call the perigee. So perigee, very close to Earth. Well, in one way, that stirred up our emotion, because moon is quite close. So we are kind of breathing that kind of a moon's, emotion, the feeling, and the wave is coming to you. And we can see this chart is also quite interesting.
I was just thinking moon emotions, breathing the emotions, moon in Capricorn. So, I was just laughing because I was like, so breathe in all that constipated, emotionally repressed energy, people. I say this as somebody with moon in Capricorn myself. I mean,
well, so as Johnny Depp.
Breathe in all that denial of your actual feelings, So
I'm sorry to say that, but well, I totally ignore the moon side. But I just talk about the moon is quite close. But you are right, that the moon side in Capricorn. Well, yes, if you totally breathe in,
it's an interesting contradiction, right? Because it will do all that, but.
Yeah. What is your informal phrase for moon in Capricorn, Marcus? What do you call it?
I can't. Was it emotionally constipated or emotional?
Well, it's related to that. Don't you call it moon in Capricorn?
Capricorn, yeah.
Capricorn, yeah.
What you said just reminded me of that. Moon in Capricorn.
I do.
All moon in Capricorns are married to a beautiful moon in Capricorn, so I'm defending Capricorn as well.
No, I am a moon in Capricorn native, so I'm not slandering it. I think it has some of its own peculiar virtues, let's say. But I mean, it's interesting because it is a contradiction, or it's an oxymoron or whatever, because like you say, Rod, it's like moon in perigee, amplifying emotional sensitivity. Moon in Capricorn is all like, I don't have time for the emotions right now, I got work to do. So it's kind of it's sort of like amplifying a sense of sort of emotional repression, like, oh, I can't, or compartmentalization, I can't, this isn't time to deal with this now. So there's a little bit of amplification of emotional austerity or whatever at the time. I don't know, but yeah.
It's interesting because both Cancer and Capricorn are both signs. They're associated with the past as well. So that idea of that, when you just said, Marcus, the idea about sort of that emotional repression, well, where does that come from? That comes from past things, doesn't it? Past emotions, past events, past experiences, past lives, even if that's something that you
go along with.
It's really interesting. And you've got Uranus on the south node there, very close.
North node.
Sorry, north node.
But interestingly,
I just saw it at the bottom of the chart. It's the
But interestingly, trining both ends of that, trining and sextiling the moon. So it's kind of like something about this. Let's try and unpack it a little bit. I mean, this is only a full moon, so it's only sort of saying what the unfolding of the story of this month that we just described, with all that sort of like loads of energy and potential frustrations with you know, which could be soothed by saying nice things or whatever. This is the middle of the month, so this is like, okay, this is the full story of this month is unfolded at this point. So it's kind of got Mercury and the Sun together in Cancer, so it's like speaking your emotional truth on one end, opposed by the moon with Pluto in Capricorn. Not today, thank you, I don't have time to deal with the emotions, I have things to do. And then trining and sextiling that Uranus on the North Node in Taurus, which is what it's sort of saying something. I don't know what that's saying, but it's not a tense aspect. It's like this it's just helping to get things moving. I don't know what
good. Okay, the friendly way to say move on.
Get the idea of obviously with Pluto, sort of secrets and skeletons in the closet and so on and so forth, like you just said, Mark, as you know, this emotional honesty here with the Sun and Mercury, and then you've got not today, thank you, I think was exactly what you said. And then you've got that North Node and that Uranus almost kind of like, I don't know, electrifies it or shakes it up or shakes it out or something like that. I mean, perhaps moving your body would be moving your body in some way, especially now you've got Mars in Aries, which is, oh no, you've got Mars has gone into Taurus. Yeah, exactly. Mars has gone into Taurus now. So move your body, do something with your body, shake your body or something, just to try and release. It's a good release for emotional energy, because it's another intense chart, isn't it?
It is, yes.
This is like there's all something. I think that's a great reading, Mandy. I think something along the lines of that, where you've got this sort of emotional, quite potentially revelatory sort of things coming up that could be informative for people, but that are maybe not emotionally sort of desired. They're sort of like, you know, they're not comfortable truths, but they're potentially useful. Uranus liberates. It's like Uranus is just about the truth. It doesn't, truth is indifferent. I mean, I know there's this right-wing American Ben Shapiro says facts don't care about your feelings, which is a bit more saturnine perhaps, but there's something Uranian about that in a positive sense, which is like, literally, truth is neutral. Truth is like, it just is. So with Uranus in trine and sextile to that, it's like whatever comes up, you can handle it. Just like Mandy was saying, do something physical, do something active, whatever comes up for you at this sort of middle of July. Do something physical to help work it out, and doing some physical activity will actually help you think through your feelings in some way.
Wow, it's a lot of talk, but this we talk about three important chart, and each chart as they are as tense as each other.
Yeah.
All of them are quite intense,
Venus
but
square
also
Neptune in that chart. Did you see the
yes,
Venus square
I
Neptune in that chart?
I
sorry.
didn't see that. Let's go back to it. And
Let's
also
go back,
Neptune,
sorry.
Neptune was trining both ends of that lunation as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Interesting.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all right.
Here we are.
It's easy to miss Neptune.
Yes,
One of those,
definitely.
one of those planets you can just
They're
kind of
hiding
miss.
so well.
Yeah, there
Yes,
it is.
Venus. Okay, Venus square Neptune were quite
Yeah.
tight.
And
Yes,
trine
also-
and
oh.
trine Saturn. Yeah.
Yes.
That's also very idealistic, isn't it? It's quite romantic. Venus.
That's a
Neptune.
fascinating mix, because you've got Venus trine Saturn, super realistic, a little bit boring, and Venus square Neptune, delusional. So you've kind of got you've got this sort of mix of like the Venus in Gemini. It's like sort of saying it's on the one hand, it's sort of, I don't know, what is that Venus trine Saturn sort of but square Neptune in Gemini. It's kind of it's written words or spoken things about females or about women or about fashion or about whatever any of those archetypal Venus things are, that on the one hand pertain to be realistic and maybe conservative, and on the other hand are perhaps deceptive or not entirely what they seem to be at this time, or on a personal level. It's kind of like the relationship contract that maybe seems to be coming into being, not being entirely watertight or something. I don't know what do you guys think? I mean,
Mandi.
Oh, well, I was just thinking about that Venus in Gemini there. It's kind of like, especially if you've got the sun with Mercury, that idea of something needs to be said, something needs to be communicated. And again, Saturn allows that, but then that square with Neptune is like, okay, how do I get to the truth? What is the truth? I mean, Saturn likes the truth. What's the reality? What's the, where's the responsibility lie? Or, it might be I need to say something, I need to communicate something, but I know I do. I have an obligation or a duty, or I feel compelled to. But it's like, can I be bothered?
It's because there's so many. This chart gets. I mean, like any chart, the more you pick into it, the more there is to see, isn't there? But it's just like at the same time, you've got Mercury trining Neptune and sextiling Uranus. So it's kind of like what you were saying, Mandi. I think that was fascinating about the Venus sort of square Neptune but trine Saturn. It's sort of like, well, what if were you talking about in terms of relationships and stuff? It's like you kind of want to
in terms of anything really, I guess, generally. But relationships obviously is a Venusian thing, as we know.
It's sort of like at the moment, the advice, I was trying to cook that down into some sort of advice. It would be like, in terms of relationships, particularly romantic ones, or relationships to do with entertainment or pleasure or romance, like literally relationships, if you're signing a contract of some sort or making an agreement middle of the month, just check in and double check things and make sure that make sure that you haven't got your beer goggles on somehow. And double check the thing, because there's a weird mix of pragmatism and self-deception or deception going on here at this time. But and at the same time, Mercury trine Neptune can be quite creative with the truth, but it's sort of like saying Mercury, what's interesting here is Mercury's in a water sign. Water signs are mute. So Mercury here is quite capable of perceiving real and profound emotional truths. It's quite capable of spotting any deception. It's quite capable of communicating it, but it won't be communicated verbally. It'll be communicated non-verbally. It'll be communicated through feelings, through intimation. So it's kind of like indirectly the truth will be clear to read. Verbally, it won't be. or something like
or
that.
even through spirit on a more spiritual level as well.
Yeah,
With Neptune in Pisces,
yeah.
and Venus in Gemini for some people or some situations could signify two relationships. I'm not saying two romantic relationships, but two relationships. So where there's potentially a Saturnian relationship, and also where there's potentially a more Neptunian relationship, or even about your relationship with yourself.
Yes,
on a more personal level.
It'll be so interesting to see what comes up in the news at this point, because it's like the news always reflects something of, you know, what's going on in the chart. So I'm just fascinated to see what this will be.
Definitely. My image of this Venus in Gemini would be like a kind of good negotiator and very realistic and very rational. So during the Saturn couldn't see Neptune, Neptune couldn't see Saturn, they are kind of aversion to each other. So the reality couldn't see the dream, dream couldn't see the reality. You have this Venus trying to help, trying to, you know, running in and out to patch them, try to bring the connection to these two sides. They couldn't see each other. So, you know, that would be like, what do you want? You want to choose? You want a reality, or you want are you going to sacrifice your vision or something? But the Venus in Gemini, they say, wait, hold on. We need both things. We need both things. So that's kind of a mix.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I was sort of thinking of like something, if I was trying to put into a person, and this isn't, I'm not totally happy with this because it's just their first thought, but it's sort of like if you think of it, sort of female double agent like Mata Hari or something in the Second World War. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like somebody
I just read her story.
Oh, did you? All right. But somebody who knows how to play both sides of the field, to say the right things, to appear like they're, you know, playing the conventional game, but is actually potentially quite good at sort of the deception and casting this sort of illusion. So because Gemini is always double-bodied, it can present literally two sides, two faces, two roles. So I mean, that doesn't now have to be a negative thing. It can be you can put it to good or bad use, because that's Gemini all over. It can go either way. So but it's a positive sign. So, you know.
And not to forget that both Venus and Neptune together is art and artistic, and the dance and the photography and the music and all that kind of thing. That might be
another way to communicate.
That might be an outlet for some of the more intense energy.
Try to solve it down, try to water it down, try to, you know. Wow, gosh, we say 30 minutes, but I think we just nearly to do 1 hour, but I'm very happy because I always spend time with my best friends talking about astrology. You never want to stop, to be honest. And I have the honor to do this once a week. No, to be honest, it's truly doing it. You just talk, and you just totally forget time. But this is what we're going to see for this summer, and in July. Don't forget now those intensify energy, but also have a positive way. Don't forget to use our rational mind, or also, you know, the humor and beautiful gesture and kindness.
Always be kind.
Always be kind. Can diffuse, because I keep telling myself, because I have that kind of potential. Oh, how could
it is difficult sometimes, but I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's like that's the work. That is the actual work, to sort of like when you are in that state.
To
remember.
And I think because
Breathe.
my personal in my personal chart, I do have a Mars opposite Moon square Pluto, so that is picking up.
I didn't know they were okay. Well, I'll have to take another look.
There's a T square for me. For me, that's why when you're talking about that, I just keep my mouth shut, because I know I can explore. I can explore in that situation. It's just like this is unfair. This is unfair. How could you? Just like being very stupid in another way. Why are you doing this? It's not going to help.
It's funny. I've got the Moon square Pluto bit, so I empathize with that. But I didn't realize your Mars was plugging in. That's interesting. Okay,
but it's out of a sign. It's out of sign.
Oh,
Well, okay, thanks everyone. Thank you, Mandi. Thank you, Marcus. Always bring the beautiful and very positive, very, the interpretation and give them great advice how we going to apply this energy. Astrology is not just telling you what's going to happen. It's also tell you what we can use. What kind of a way what we can see things, we can use it, we can help us to achieve. Whoa, we just kind of
We lost Marcus.
lost Marcus. Well, he will try to coming back, but by that time I think we already say goodbye.
Ah,
Well, I can just first things, that in July we have a webinar. Is Alejo Lopez going to talk about the astrology of happiness? Is on the 16th of July. Alejo
that'll be a
is
good one.
Yeah, Alejo
That'll
is
be
a
a brilliant one.
fantastic speaker and is also our regular guest in our channel. So, please support him. And if you want to enroll, I will post a link here. And also, I think this the following week of this episode is the world scope. I will definitely have our regular panelists, Sharon and Luisa will join us to talk about what happened. I still haven't decided, but I was thinking maybe I'm going again about abortion things, because I think that is such huge thing to talk about it. Well, so please, if you like our channel, if you like our video, please subscribe and share. And then so our AOA team, Mandi and Marcus, will coming back early next month. Well, before that, stay tuned. See you then. Bye bye.